the structure of the Race Equity Advisory Committee, about around a year ago. I don't know exactly when, I guess I could go back and look, but an email came through that was talking about filling committee positions, and it triggered my interest because it was asking about whether the requirement for residency could be waived, and it was for community members, and it seemed out of sorts for me because we don't usually do things that way. That there's usually an ordinance or something that will tell you that kind of thing. And so I researched the committee, you know, because it was new. It wasn't here when I used to be on staff, and then I came back and it's new. And realized that there had not been an ordinance that established it or resolution. It was done on a council motion, and that it hadn't really, I guess, for lack of a word, come back to council. And I went and talked to the committee about that on February 10th. And I think it was a surprise for the committee members to find that out. My office prepared a memorandum. It was discussed at a committee meeting, and we came back, and Brett Jetty came back and talked to the committee again on September 8th. And I attached those agendas and meeting minutes for your review as a part of my agenda item. And really at this point, I'm just bringing the council's whole up to speed with what the information that was shared with the committee earlier this year and some of those questions and answers that were provided. Generally speaking, council can create two committees, two long-term type committees. That's the ones that you serve on that are set by the council president, the public works, finance, and public safety. I'm forgetting the one I'm on. And that's actually important because I'm not on that committee. And those are the 3 council members are on those committees and not staff, not the other types of committees that council creates. You know, also go by the names of advisory boards and commissions, are found in our code. And those include, and there's a memo that was included in the REAC memo. Mostly citizens. Some of you have served on those before your time in council, like Planning Commission, Arts Commission, Parks Commission. It's a person that is an interest in that particular area of the city government that they put in an application. The mayor selects people to be appointed to those commissions and committees, and then it comes to the council to review and to confirm the appointment. Confirmation in that way is the same as it is for a director. And while the commission and committee appointments are usually pretty, let's say, mild, certainly you're free to ask questions, and we've all seen confirmation hearings on TV that's as in depth as you guys wanted them to be. And so that's a process that's laid out in our city charter. And the process is the one that the voters of the city has determined is the one that our organization is going to follow when it sets up an advisory committee. And it's my role to sort of protect that sanctity of that decision of the voters. The process as it is involves a person who's the mayor, who's elected by the entire community, bringing the candidate in front of the council, who's as a body, who's elected by the entire community, and then putting it in front of the public, with a chance to vet that person and provide comment as to whether they should serve in it. And so what I've prepared in this memorandum is, or in this agenda bill, is some options for the council to consider on how to create a race equity advisory committee that complies with the structure that is set out in the charter, or is that available to you as council in your rules of procedure. I've made this out as like option 1A, 1B, 2A, and 2B. And option ones, those are council committees. That's the 3 people. And option 2 is the commission advisory board, the what I would like to say that you can create that's in the city code. I also made a handout because I think this is hard to sometimes think about when you're kind of creating something new. And I made a handout because I thought it might be helpful for you when you're thinking about this as, and I'll just pass it around. There's 2 of them. Don't laugh at me. Hold on, let me split this up so we can go around both sides of the table at one time.
What's that one? All right.
And I made a lot of copies, so there should be enough for anyone in the audience that wants one. And I couldn't decide, this is kind of which one goes first. Handout 1 or handout 2. So at the end of the day, I'll let you decide because we're not going to fill these are just for your own personal use, but I will explain them. So the first one I just want to talk about is this matrix that is just a graph. And so I put the options on the left side and I put some words at the top as well as some blanks. And I got these words from a couple of places. I got them from the REAC meeting that I attended, reviewing the minutes from the one that Brett attended, as well as the community conversation that REAC held, where they got some input from the community as to things that are important. And these are things that I think that could be considered as ways to sort of rank these choices. And you could put check marks and X's, you could assign numerical, whatever speaks to your language, I think is how you fill this out. This is just a way, I think, to sort of evaluate these choices and to see like what priorities that have been identified and how well they rank. And so, for example, I will actually come out and say this. I think option 1A is probably the one that is least in line with what I've heard that people would like to see. That is where it would just be like a public works committee. And so I would say that if you were going to fill this out, and these are all just your opinions on this stuff, that community engagement, that would probably get an X or a frowny face or a 0, however it is you're filling it out, because we don't do public comment on those, right? And so that's how I would suggest that maybe that decision be made. And I don't need to walk you through it because this is all just your own thoughts. I will, however, say that I will walk you through the second one because this is the legal and risk considerations and creating a community member advisory committee. And like I said, our code kind of uses commission, committee, advisory board synonymous. There are some considerations, and what this did is I just took what we need in an ordinance and I gave some legal considerations on one side, and then I gave essentially a menu of options on the back, and it's a way to sort of give some direction as to what a committee might look like. And so one of the issues that was identified in some of our meetings with the group was that the committee structure was very restrictive, that the members thought that it was difficult to meet and talk, and I wanted to be able to do that and not be limited by the Open Public Meetings Act. And so one thing that I thought of was that if with a larger committee, people can meet more freely. So, and I gave the example of like a really large committee, 15 people. And like I said on here, I understand there's other issues about size of committees, but you guys go to meetings. I'm not going to do that analysis that like a big group might be more difficult to manage or something like that. But from a legal standpoint, that would help the OPMA, but it would in turn have the opposite effect on the, like, public records. So there's a risk to balance there between sides, like too big. Or a large committee, you can have smaller, you can have groups of people meet outside of the meeting, but you also have the issue that if there's a record request, that then you have 15 people complying with the request, kind of an inverse relationship there. As far as for terms, qualifications, and composition, generally speaking, people need to be 18 years of age and live in a city to qualify for an appointment, but that can be changed by council. So council can waive that requirement by ordinance. They can allow youth, they can allow people to have another relationship. Term, of course, is also set. Compensation is another issue that was raised by the members, that they wanted to get some sort of stipend or something. Some cities are doing that for their boards and commissions. It's usually a stipend to offset the cost of travel, childcare, meals, parking, that kind of thing. And it can be waived, and there's usually a cap on the amount. So that's something the council could consider as well. As far as meeting parameters, this one is one that definitely has a legal consideration. Public comment is what triggers an advisory committee to be subject to the OPMA. It's one of the government actions that results in that committee, even though it's advisory, falling under the definition. And so if the committee is allowed to take public comment, should be, I think, specifically addressed by the council. And if they are, then whoever chairs the meeting is going to need training on that, because moderating public comment and doing it lawfully is something that someone needs to know how to do. He's been shaking his head. They can also, council would also set how often, and that's going to also depend if there's a per meeting stipend, right? So removal and vacancies, that's just necessary that we put it in an ordinance so that we have a process in place for whenever it happens. And that can involve the mayor, the council, the hearing examiner. There's a lot of different options there. Certainly absolutely not follow civil service and make it where you have to go to Superior Court, but there's, as long as there's a process to deal with those things as they happen, then it helps everything function well. And then, but once again, this is just related to me responding to seeing that a majority of the council seems to want to have this committee going forward. That was evident in the budget discussions, that there was discussion of the committee. So there are other options to it could be not a committee, and instead the council decides to do public, like townhouse type meetings. There could be other options. I just wanted to provide this information as to the committee structure, because there seemed to be a desire to go toward that direction, and the current structure, the one, there's been complaints that it's not as effective as the people were wanting, and I think some of the issues with that would be addressed if it were formally adopted, and also that it is out of compliance with how we do committees. That's it. I don't have anything else. So
Okay.
you guys can tell me if you have questions or when you want to see this again, but I'm just providing the information that, like I said, has been provided already to the
Great,
REAC.
thanks. Quinn?
Thank you so much, Kylie. November 4th, I believe, was Attorney Appreciation Day. I'm sorry we missed it, but I want
Here.
to.
No. Oh, no, those are yours.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
I want to. I know. We'll get you something. I dropped the ball on that one. But I want to thank you and Brett and the entire legal department with like your patience and help with this committee this year. I think it's no secret that it wasn't in the best shape when it was like handed over, and there's been a lot of competing interests, and I think I just want to thank you for all of your work on this, and now helping the council understand all of the the opportunities to make this stronger. So, you know, my initial thoughts are, I shared the draft ordinance. Hopefully everybody got it, with the city council that Brett, mocked up. My gut feeling, as having been chair for almost a year now, and wrapping up our meetings, I personally kind of like to be like the idea of, you know, the entire thought around race equity in government is how can we figure out, as people in power, because we do have power, getting more community input that might not have been, you know, accessible in the way that traditional government structures are brought up. And I do think possibly bringing in a structure where community members are allowed to kind of work amongst themselves, because I do think one of the roadblocks this year for the committee was, you know, educating on OPMA, and saying like, hey, you need to stop emailing. Like, this is not like, we need to be in compliance. And so, of course, I understand all of those laws are still in effect, but I think creating a structure where once you get on, you're trained in OPMA, you're trained in Public Records Act, you're trained and you sign a contract of like, hey, if you're going to be using any sort of city resources that we afford to you, this is your obligation and your rights and responsibilities like any other contract. But I like to be specifically because of the ability to appoint council liaisons, because we want to, you know, have them not constrained by, you know, city council members being on the committee, but we want to empower as well by having somebody that does have power to liaise back onto. I say that with just my personal experience. What I would like to do, and I'm hoping to do, is, you know, also have some self-determinancy around this committee. There's 3 members on it that have been there from the very beginning, and so really are finishing out 3 years. And so I would like you know, we've given them a memo that Brett prepared for us in March. We gave them another recent memo, which, you know, the 3 of us sat down, Anna, myself, and Jennifer, and talked with Brett about with these constraints. I would like to let them know, like, hey, council needs this to happen. Like, we've been talking about it long enough. But at least get their recommendation and bring that back to you and present that as a recommendation. And so what I'm hoping to do is at least finish out this year, and maybe bring this to a study session possibly in December. And then, you know, when we discuss either at the retreat or whatever in January, actually put this on the calendar, have consensus around it, and go forward. One of the reasons we held off with pushing an ordinance was because we did want to focus on the budget, and that was a conversation, you know, we had. But I understand your risks that are going into it, and I think it is important for, you know, council to know like the difference between like a statute violation of OPMA, which is like state law, versus like, are we in conformance with charter, and both need to be adhered to and fixed. But I think there is a difference of one creating a lot more risks to the city than another. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear everybody else.
Yeah, I'd love to. Okay, Eric.
Yeah, surprise. I'm actually speaking sooner rather than later. So, and my question, Kylie, option 1A, 1B, 2A, 2AB, 2B. Are these the only 4 options that you believe are available to this council, given our charter? These are the only 4 available. In other words, if Quinn turns to this group and says, okay, you got 1 of 4 options, which one do you want? Or, hey, I haven't been listening to their meetings, but I'm hearing through the background all kinds of issues going on. They may come up with option 3, is there a possibility they actually could come up with an option 3 that would satisfy the requirements of our charter and state law?
I say no, because I'm just not that absolute. So if another option was presented, I would evaluate it against the charter and the code and make a determination. So I don't want to say, these are the ones that I've identified. One thing that we did look at, and this was actually in the ordinance that Brett attached, was whether council could be on the committees themselves. One thing, I don't know if you even want that, but the way I wrote it was as a liaison, because I think as Brett wrote it, it was that the council president would appoint, and we read the charter, and it would actually create a weird situation where I think the mayor would have to appoint one to decide which council, which we thought was weird and didn't do, but maybe would not actually be a violation of the charter. So there, I could say that there could be some nuances to some of these, but like, if it's, can we create something that's wildly different? The answer is no. Does that make sense? Like, there could be some.
Yeah, you're leaving it out that there might be a possibility and you say, oh, well, yeah, that is it. But yeah.
So like these, I guess, are the basics. So, because when you get into the, especially the 2, you guys have a lot of flexibility in those, like, and so it could look,
Okay.
yeah.
So then follow-up question, option 1A, 1B, this is a process through the council. This would be changing our rules and procedures. 2A and 2B is passing an ordinance. In my understanding, then this would mean that we're telling the mayor, whether he or she wants it or not, that there shall be a REAC committee. And these are the procedures. In other words, the way I'm understanding it, if that's the purview of the council, we could pass the ordinance. If the mayor decides to veto it, then it's going to take the supermajority of the council, and we could force it upon the mayor whether he or she likes it or not.
That's correct.
Okay.
Denise?
That leads into my question, which I brought up before, and that is the relationship between whatever we create and the mayor's office and his new position of diversity manager. And I just want us to keep that in mind, because to me, that's critical to design something which has a probability even of success. Because if they don't work well together, then we're going to be in a worse situation than we're in now. And so I hope for the best. My only response with the chairperson's desire to, take this back to REAC and get a recommendation from them is, if we're leaning in one direction and we send it back just to get their recommendation, and then we don't do it, that's going to put us in a worse situation than we are now. So I think it's really important to think long-term how this is going to work with the mayor's office, not in a confrontational way. I don't mind it being necessarily a council committee, but I want it to work in collaboration with the mayor's office. And dictating to the mayor isn't necessarily the best way to start that relationship off. Anyway, those are just some thoughts I have.
So I guess one response that I think to that it is that I think the charter sort of anticipated that, in that calls both branches to seat a person on the committee. And so there is that. Now, as far as structure and things like that, then you're right. I mean, you guys come up with it and things and stuff like that. And like I said, these are just the options based on that. My feedback from this council, that there should be another option could be, like I said, community meetings, or maybe the community. Some people might see if these are the only structures, that maybe they're actually worse than not having the committee. And that it's better to have a direct link in public recognition. So I'm just saying that, yes, I mean, that this charter does anticipate that the mayor will be involved because they do the appointment, but
Yeah,
Mine was a real quick comment, so there is an option.
which is not good.
No, okay, there's an option 4. So option 3 is not. Option 4 is for the citizens to do a charter and then come up with their own structure. That is option 4.
we call that the nuclear option.
But that's option 4.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling, again, when I'm hearing, in the background, I've been having nothing to do with this committee, is that they would probably take option 4. They don't like any, again, I'm not speaking, but from what I'm getting, they would not accept one, they won't accept any of those, and they'll go for option 4, which is a charter.
Jeff,
Which to get a charter amendment, remember the process, it's like 10,000 signatures.
We have a memo on it that we can send back around. It comes up every few weeks. I feel like,
That's right.
so the citizens can initiate this doesn't matter.
And
But either way, it involves the voters.
I think it's a good point on, I think it's good to keep in our heads, is that there are the people currently on the committee, who have put in a tremendous amount of work and greatly respect that. And they've been there a long time, they've been doing the work. There are also a lot of other, but there are a couple people and there's a whole community of people out there who are also interested in this work, and serving. And so I don't want to, I think we need to keep them in mind too. And so, what we create really does need to last for several years. So I mean, I'm just speaking bluntly, I don't see option 1 is a good possibility. Option 2 makes sense. And I'm with Quinn, if we can do it 2B, I think that is kind of nice just because it has that intersection. A council liaison could say, hey, this is what we're thinking of. We got golden procedures coming up. This is what's coming before us. And then report back. It's a little more nimble than say like planning commission right now, where they're putting their package together and then it gets in front of us, which works, just fine for that. But I think I'm fine with saying basically option 2 and give them a little flexibility, but I agree it can't be a back and forth for too much longer. I think totally reasonable to get the end of the year is a good transition point, a real definitive goal in mind. But I think give them a couple of variations of 2 and some of this, come back to us and we get it done.
they
No.
did, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would say, 2B is also, City of Bainbridge Island. They have a different form of government, but that is the one that's most in line with it.
Anna?
Thanks. Okay, so the committee, as it's currently constituted, is in violation of the charter.
The committee is,
It has no ordinance, it violates the charter.
we don't have citizen advisory committees that are created this way. And so let me explain, I guess.
No, I'm just,
Right. so
you
what
did
is-
explain, but
Right.
please go ahead and explain.
to say this, the charter states that council committees that are created by ordinance shall be filled a certain way, right? This committee was not created by an ordinance, it's a council committee. However, it's a council committee with citizens, which then is functioning like a citizen advisory committee. And so while it doesn't violate the letter of the charter, there is certainly indication in the charter that citizen advisory committee should be created in this process that involves both branches of government.
Okay, so, but right now, the Race Equity Advisory Committee that's having its next scheduled meeting tomorrow has no supporting ordinance and violates the charter. It violates the spirit of the
Let's
charter.
just say it's not ideal.
Yeah. So, is it a possibility that all of this matter could be given to the committee for them to talk about among themselves? Is that something that they could do? That's why I'm asking, because I don't know the answer, not because I'm leading somewhere.
I'd like to, if possible, I'd like to build on
Yep,
his
go ahead.
comments, not a new one. That's what was in my mind. Okay, so I understand there's a nuance, whether we're technically in violation of the charter or not. I think you guys know my feelings on that. For safety's sake, because I don't want to stretch my neck out there to be in violation, even possibly in violation of the charter. My preference would be for this material to be given to the members, the current members of the REAC. They can discuss amongst themselves, not on tomorrow's meeting. That tomorrow's meeting shouldn't happen. This material could be given by you or someone on the council, one person, say, hey, this is what the council's thinking. And they could have their own meeting on their own. And they could write back to either you or one council member and say, this is what we decided we'd like as a group. And it's no longer an officially sanctioned REAC committee, but what you're getting is the citizen input from the members of this REAC committee. And so we're not violating the charter. And we're also achieving our goal of reaching out to them and saying, what would you like?
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment. I think like one of the issues with that is this is gonna be kind of news to all of these people, right? Like about the urgency of it and it's the fact that there might not be a meeting tomorrow. So I feel like part of our job as committee members, Jennifer, Anna, and myself, is to help this committee navigate the structure of the government and understand the reasons why this needs to be happening. I know that we've had meetings on it before, but this is new information of, hey, I kind of thought we'd wait till after budget season and, possibly new people on the committee and, going forward, but I would just feel very, for lack of a better word, like icky saying, hey, guess what? The next 2 meetings are canceled and you're just regular citizens, but we'll take your advice if you want to provide it to us. It's
Can I, yeah,
if that was the route, like it probably should have happened in like 2020.
I agree. City Attorney and I were talking today about how, to be honest, I think the main person that was going to champion the structure was Lori Weed, who probably would have done an excellent job. And she ended up moving. And then it kind of just took that task like off of our radar. I have an idea too. So first thing would be, I personally would be okay having REAC meet tomorrow with the sole task of reviewing this. So that it would be one of the things that we were asked for to even do this was to get community input. So it would be like, we could say it doesn't currently exist, but it's the right people to look at this. We're acknowledging that there's a problem and we're taking immediate steps to fix it. I actually like option 1A, just to see Quinn's head explode, and which is a word that Denise Fry taught me, in option sort of 2A or 2B, because what that would do would be we would on both sides of the sort of there would be 3 council members who would end up being the liaisons, but we would codify that, and the 3 of them might meet with the whole committee or meet with HR and the DEI or things like that. So we would have that focus and we're sort of doubling down. And then we would have the council. Is that okay? So, you know, we kind of, yeah, to me, it's a way to show our commitment to do that. And so just, that was kind of an idea, but I do think sort of the two A, B, definitely we'd like to have some liaisons, but kind of like Bainbridge does, but the liaisons would just be the council's committee. So if we called it the Committee on Race Equity, then we could call it the court. Last thought.
I'd really like to hear from the vice president on this one.
Is he still here?
Oh, no, maybe I killed the batteries from all my talking earlier. I'm just really wanting to take it all in because there's so many different angles and I just whatever y'all want to do, honestly. I've been through the ringer on every single damn scenario this year, and it's been so frustrating to be part of this group, but also know how valuable the work is, and to be shut down, you know, to have legal come to the group and have them shut them down, and then to just continually be shut down when we try to tell them the facts, just to be shut down. And to still have like the heart for the work. So it's, I just, whatever, you know, I'm done. I have no more, bites to give on this one.
Yes,
All right, Michael, so you kind of gave me a which option do you like now? Which one?
Well, I was saying that basically 2B, but the liaisons would be sort of a 1A. It would be there would be 3 designated that could be, maybe they would only meet quarterly or something like that. And, you know, maybe they meet with, you know, whoever they would like to, and then they would serve, and maybe just one of them goes to a regular meeting or something like that. It was just a way for us to do something on our side, create something
Okay.
on our side, and create something on the administrative side.
So how about this? So I'm listening. How about I'd like your first suggestion of allowing the group to meet tomorrow for the sole purpose of telling them about this. And this is what your discussion is. Saying, okay, we got a problem and we need some mechanism to tell you we got a problem. And this is the venue to tell you. We got to fix it now. The second thing is we don't tell them what the council wants. I mean, they can listen to this, but by doing that, we're listening to them first, what they want. Hear the input from the chair in our next, whenever we talk about it sooner rather than later, I assume the next study session. Quinn can give us the feedback from the committee. We take their feedback and then we figure out which option we want to proceed with after listening to their suggestion.
That sounds great. Again, the concern is I feel like they have been presented these rough ones and haven't cared for them as options. But the one thing I would also say is we have to start somewhere. Maybe it does change the charter someday, but we need to create this group to maybe make that happen. Jennifer.
Well, I had chatted with Kylie to ask about a list of questions that we can have them directly answer. And so the last meeting, it was decided that we would have a working document that we all, you know, how the group does, they work by consensus, which I think we do too. It's pretty beautiful when it works. And so to go line by line, to go through these items, that was the suggestion of the group. So I would have this document up, or one that looks a little bit different, but it has this information on it. And they would just go point by point.
A little Scantron.
Well, nope, they want to talk about it. And that's, you know, just like we do. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a good model, right? So they're gonna want to go through each one of these and decide, of course, they're gonna probably decide, you know, $100 a meeting. But, but I think just, I have some more questions about, this one. I don't know how to necessarily facilitate this tool because I don't know that I have good definitions. Are they in the packet that you provided?
No, so, I gave those, it's just, I think those can mean whatever people want, honestly. Like, it might be for the group to decide what that
They could add
means.
their own to the empty space.
And,
Okay.
but I can tell you offline, like what I was thinking based on, but I definitely, what I was suggesting really with this was that people sort of organize their thoughts on which option is best, because when you do it this way, you can really like, this one, some of them are good for one thing, but not another. And then I think prioritizing which one of these are the most important.
Could you?
I don't
I'm gonna give it
understand
to
how to-
Jennifer, and I think she's gonna do something way better, because I am not good at tables.
So
Well,
can we at least do a little more in-depth description of 1A,
Sure.
1B, 2A, 2B?
so
Oh, you want that definition? Yes, I can.
one A,
I
one
can
B,
define those. That's in the
two A,
packet.
two B, that's in the packet. Cause I didn't have, okay.
Yeah, that's on option, that's on the page 1 of the agenda.
And so, so basically, I'm not sure how to work the tool. You clearly know how to work the tool because you put arrows on it and everything. So can you tell me how you work this tool?
So I just did, it's actually the way we in the Navy, when we would interview, somebody for qualifications. But I just do arrows, a straight up arrow is just the best. You know, a west or an east arrow is sort of like average. You can do sort of a northeast, southeast, or south. So, yeah, it's kind of like, you know, when things go south, then it's good. But you could put a number in there. You could do happy, sad, and, you know, crying tears, face emojis.
Because what I'm not seeing is are these same questions for one A and one B? Is that because these questions don't apply to those structures?
Well, it was more, are you talking about these?
Yeah,
Mainly just because
there's-
there's 3 council members.
There's no citizens on 1A and 1B.
Okay, and public participation.
Is,
And so there is no way for it to continue to be a council committee unless, except for us as council liaisons, it would just be the 3 of us under 1A and 1B, but public participation is we invite guests. Is that correct?
I think,
Okay.
I think it's an assumption that they're not gonna pick one, A or B.
yeah, one would be like what your public safety committee. It would just be 3 council members, right?
Great.
1B is public, like what we have there with allowing
sh-
public comment.
And you're sure I can't get an extra $100 just by showing up to this meeting? Because I feel like I'm owed it. Can we get back pay?
That is actually in the charter, and the answer is no.
At this point. Quinn, I think you have a offer there on the table. So 2A and 2B. So if they choose 2A, 2B, then we'll take them through this line here.
Right, so yeah, 2A and 2B are, the council passes an ordinance, it gets codified, and it's positions are filled pursuant to the charter.
And so, what that means though is, would that mean that we could continue the rest of this year, but they have to reapply? For
True,
next
like
year.
the committee structure that it is right now isn't in compliance with this structure. So when the committee, the council passed an ordinance, anyone on the newly created committee, could you, like I said, I put on here, I picked up when we were talking about Parks Commission, for example, that, there was some interest in having district-wide, district representation on committees, right? So that's something we could write into the ordinance, that instead of it just being 7 citizens and them all being from the net or something like that, that there be, you know, a council, a person from each district. So once you say what the makeup of the committee is going to be, then yeah, it's that there's no way that it like just rolls over or anything.
So we currently, and this is a question for Lori, who hates to be put on the spot. I'm so sorry. We're gonna need to pass. or a head nod, or I don't know how to do it, but do we have a public notice out for our meeting tomorrow? Okay. And in the packet, we have this information?
I don't think so.
No.
I didn't have this.
And so
information
that's
at our
okay
point.
because it's a working document, is what I understood about that.
I think I sent an email asking that the REAC draft ordinance be sent both to REAC committee members and city council members. I think it was only sent to city council members, obviously, because as a body, we hadn't really decided if.
I think we sent that to the committee members a while back.
No, I think this is,
I sent it to city council to be distributed, and it wasn't distributed.
I think this is the September 13th.
No, I sent it directly to
I-
members
Okay, so they've had this for some time.
1 month.
Yeah.
And there's been a little bit of feedback. It's the same time that I sent those care resources. No, we
No.
haven't,
You-
we haven't
you-
worked it
You're,
out.
you're in the room with Brett with us.
Yeah.
So
I honestly have not been
No.
in touch with
that's,
Quinn. Anna, I'm gonna clarify it right now. I sent it,
All right, folks, come
yeah,
on.
who's-
Jennifer's talking.
yes.
I sent the evening after the meeting that you and I were at that I chaired. Late that night, I sent the ordinance to all the members. I sent the ordinance that we discussed. I followed up to the community members. I also sent the gear resources and something else. Mhm. First.
Yeah.
I followed up and I sent that to the community members.
Early November.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
It has the ordinance changed?
Right, I would say there's probably still a lot of discussion to be had about what's gonna be
in the
done, but
ordinance?
I mean, the ordinance itself, they're not that complicated.
I like
They're
it, kind of like a Mad Lib for writing an ordinance.
Right, so there was also an ordinance that was just modeled off the Bainbridge one, that was included in the March memorandum too. So I mean, but I would say that deciding these things is way more effective to figuring out than looking at an ordinance that just has the headings and puts all this, like, it's more the feedback on what they want rather than, I mean, I can draft up the ordinance. They're all gonna look roughly like the one that was attached to the thing in March.
You know, somebody just mentioned Bainbridge, but I was talking to some Bainbridge council members today and you know, we keep somewhat referring to Bainbridge as the gold standard. They struggle with this too. It's difficult there. It should be difficult. It's awkward. It's, you know, anyways. And we're gonna get there. And I think we're making a good progress.
So the only final question I have as chair of this is I'm doubtful, knowing what meetings have looked like in the past, that a consensus will be reached on this tomorrow. We have relayed OPMA rules to the group beforehand and said as long as it's less than half the members meeting, they can do work groups or email one another, things like that. If they need longer than the meeting tomorrow to actually come back with a recommendation, are folks fine with me saying, okay, you know, 3 of you guys meet and then send me the materials before I talk to council, and basically what I would need to know is when council wants me to talk to them. I know that we have, this is the last study session of November and no one left in this month because of Thanksgiving. So would you be comfortable with me coming to next study session, which I believe would be the
December 7th?
There's only one. It's the 14th.
14th? Would the 14th be okay? Because then our final meeting of the year would be the 8th, and we could actually have the time to like wrap this up and be done with it. And yeah, sorry, I'm looking at Kylie for any sort of legal red flags, and I've already talked to you today, so I think we're cool.
And
But
I
is the
I
council
sort of
okay with that?
feel that this needs to be the only business at hand for you.
Yes, for both meetings.
For
If
both
we're-
meetings.
Yes, I'm 1000%.
You know,
And that
unless they get it
includes-
back to us tomorrow night, we can slam dunk it on
So can I
next
get head nods
Wednesday.
from my fellow committee members that no other people will be invited to interview? Can I get a head nod from my two fellow committee members that no other people will be?
That wasn't the
Invited to
question. The
interview.
question was,
Yeah.
can we put it off till December 14th, right? Or December 8th? Okay, because that was a question, because that, and then the next question is the interview thing. So I would love to see this done tomorrow. I know that the group is gonna have a hard time coming to a consensus, but the urgency is there.
You know, what I might suggest, like we kind of did, at least LTAC, I don't know how you ran it this time, but maybe just like a straw poll. How many people like option, not option, but the size, how many like a small group, how many like a medium group, how many, just try to collect that data and see. That would be super valuable for, Kylie and others. But if they want to take a little more time, but
And I would also say, since it is an advisory committee, there's not a requirement that they reach consensus.
Yeah.
You can simply get the input from each member and what their feelings are and share that with the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
that's what I kind of thought, just, have people fill up their sheets and send them in.
I would like to just get it done. Do it quick, rapid, get it done. Find out because when you put that urgency on it and we get the answers right away, I mean, like when people take, they have had all year to think about it. And we have come to them with options and come to them.
Look for other.
And looked for other options. Okay, yeah, but I mean, I think if we just take this and answer these questions, we have a live document, we get it done. And then if there's any follow-up,
Let me ask that to be the goal, and then knowing that we're not discussing it until the 14th.
But all three of you have to break down.
And just some assistance doing that, because I'm, how the committee.
would
is,
you
so,
like me to facilitate this portion of the meeting?
I mean, we can discuss afterwards, but yeah, I mean, if you think you can get it done in a night, I'll see to you for sure.
Just one quick suggestion, I might just put the stipend, yes, no, and then a blank. I just think it's, there's no preset amount. I think it's gonna be Denise and then Anna and, I'm sorry, Jeff.
That's fine. Mine was real quick, but which is, yes, love that. And I think people can send us an email anytime. So if they want to, any of those members want to send us an email with as many thoughts as they want. And again, I think go back to other people in the public that we know to solicit their thoughts. I think can't hurt, just to make sure we're not solely focused on the people currently on REAC.
Denise and then Anna.
I just want to go on record as saying, it's really hard to be a white ally. Really hard. And there are a lot of tears and disappointments and frustration with ourselves and all of that. And I commend our city council members who have really worked hard. This was really well intended at the very beginning and just poorly set up. And those conversations that you've been having are probably some of the most difficult any of us will ever have. And I just want to say thank you for shouldering this responsibility of trying to make this succeed,
Thank you, Denise. I just wanted to push back a little to say that it's not all poorly constructed. There's some really great features of the REAC, and that's why we still have skin in the game, is because there's some portions of it that are very valuable. What is most concerning to me about this committee is that it has become, and I know y'all know I talk a lot. I mean, I've shown it already this year. But it gets to be, some voices aren't listened to and some people are shut out. But I think that some of the information that has been generated from the group has been very valuable. The risk is, and I'm going to take a term that I've heard Kylie use before, that you don't want it to become an echo chamber. We need to have this public transparency. We need to have it all in line. And that's my biggest concern. But not everything about it is poorly set up. There are a lot of assets to this group.
All right, I also wanted to thank the folks that have worked so hard on the REAC. You know, whether you're on it for a short period of time or made it most of the year. I served on it last year, so understanding, so just wanted to send a thank you.
Final thing, I think the attorneys, because of attorney appreciation, but like a ton of work is done by Lori and Christine. And especially when I was in the weeds at my daytime job, they took over, so. I don't want them to go unnoticed. It's been a heavy lift as well, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And the other directors just sit back there and do nothing. All right, well, I think we've got some direction on this.
Thank you, council. Thank you.
So I guess a question would be if REACT tomorrow can really get us some answers, do we want to try to have this? Would we be able to do it next week?
I would say no.
Okay, that's fine. That's
No,
fine.
I think there's, I mean, I think the options there, you could have you could do.
December
December
7th?
7th would be the
So,
next.
meaning we don't need to bring it to another study session? Or do we might
Well, I
need
think
to?
you probably do, but you could have public
Okay.
comment on the 7th
Okay,
if you wanted to.
that's fine. I'm just,
I mean, like.
just
but if you
looking for
want
the
everything for
path.
them to Comment on.
Sorry,
so-
is the 7th a study session
7th
or
is this meeting.
it's a meeting?
So we
Gotcha.
go meeting, study session, meeting, study session, meeting with no intervening. Mysterious calendar year. So the next study session, I think, is where we're gonna be back, and that's the 14th. And then, so I think the earliest that this will be maybe the last ordinance you pass this year.
all right. Any other questions on that? Up next, general counsel business.